The topic that we'll cover today is the future outlook. Is the dry bulk shipping market recovery possible and sustainable? The dry bulk sector has been in a slump, leaving a lot of dry bulk shipping companies in doldrums. Low earnings for dry bulk ships were too low to cover many companies' operating costs, and vessels are suffering partly from a slowdown in the rapid growth of demand for dry bulk goods, but principally from the flood onto the market of new ships ordered during the industry's boom from 2002 to 2008. But there are some though who believes that the worst is over for dry bulk sector after suffering from the worst slump in 3 decades. Despite this, there have been few studies to investigate where this sector is actually going. Next, I'll be covering some background of the research. During the past decades, the world economy has demonstrated stable growth, occasionally interrupted by recessions of different magnitudes. According to DNV, the bulk shipping sector boom was driven by Chinese steel production, which peaked as close to 50 million tons per month in 2008. An immediate demand for shipping resulted in the rapid contracting of new vessels. Squeezed shipyard capacity led to substantial growth in new building prices. For example, new capesize bulk carrier prices increased from $30 to $40 million in 2003 to $95 to $100 million in 2008. In addition, in 2008 to 2009, the world shipping order book was close to 50% of the existing world fleet. Then in 2009 to 2010, the world economy was at its weakest state since the Great Depression of the 1930s. The maritime industry represents a vital link in international trade, providing an efficient method of transporting large volumes of basic commodities and finished products. In 2012, more than one-third of all international seaborne trade consisted of dry bulk cargo. The importance of dry bulk industry lies in the fact that it carries an estimated 4 billion tons of dry bulk cargo by sea, thus maintaining the global trade and the industry. The performance of the dry shipping market depends on the demand for and supply of bulk shipping services, as well as the characteristic of the market structure. The importance of shipping cycle in the case of dry bulk carrier is that they plays a vital part in the economics of shipping industry by managing the investment risk, where there is a large uncertainty about the future. The research aim of this paper is to analyze the dry bulk shipping market and forecast its future direction. This is to investigate whether market recovery for the dry bulk shipping market is really possible and sustainable. This is the core objective of this paper. The second objective is to identify and discuss the variables that directly and indirectly impact the dry bulk market. The research question is as follows. Number 1. What are the core determinants of market recovery and can it be measured? Number 2. What are the variables affecting the dry bulk shipping market? And number 3. How do the variables affect the dry bulk shipping market? Next, I will highlight some key literature of the research. Understanding the concept of shipping cycle is the key to grasping the movement of shipping markets. The dry bulk shipping industry is highly cyclical. A review of literature have shown that it regularly goes through periods of high ordering of capacity and high freight rates, as well as through periods of surplus of shipping capacity and low freight rates. The industry goes through 4 distinct stages. The 4 shipping stages described are a mechanism for coordinating supply and demand in the dry bulk shipping market. The 4 stages are: number 1, through. A surplus of shipping capacity pulls down freight rates near operating costs, and ship owners are forced to sell ships. Decommissions and sales increase while the shipbuilding order books decline. Number 2, recovery. Supply and demand move towards balance while freight rates increase above operating costs. Number 3, peak. This is when freight rates are high and several times operating costs. Owners become very liquid and shipbuilding order books expand. And lastly, collapse is when supply overtakes demand and freight rates fall again. The maritime cycle can be defined as a certain temporal sequence of balances and imbalances in supply and demand for the services of the maritime market, which is assimilated in economic theory to a spider's web in which prices and products behave cyclically. During a certain period, the price is above the balance level, causing the level of supply during the next period to be above the balance level. Next, when the latter occurs, it will cause the price to fall below the balance level. Supply and demand. Shipping rates are largely driven by supply and demand of vessels. Tighter supply, whether driven by higher demand or lower supply, will result in higher rates. Conversely, a looser supply and demand balance will lead to lower rates. Ship orders and scrapping activities are the two most influential activities that will affect supply. The second-hand ship market also plays a small but significant part in the supply. Prices of second-hand ships started to rise in 2012 on expectations of a recovery. Though experts warn some shippers will only break even this year, and even recovery may fade after 2016 when overcapacity could again dampen freight rates. Indices on dry bulk market. The academic literature provides various research papers on the dry bulk market and its representative indices. Many of the industry indices are reliable as indicators of market developments in shipping. Therefore, different approaches to index calculation are available and the results are compared against the existing indices in the industry. Large amount of data, weighted unit value indices are quite robust to weighing, matching, and quality correction. Also, they perform a behavioral analysis which shows that there are no structural quality aspects that influence prices indices. Due to the fact that Baltic Dry Index is computed as an equally weighted average of the sub-market indices, BDI weighs more on larger size market. Thus, as a reference indicator, BDI may produce larger size bias. By analyzing a dynamic factor model of the change rate of BDI constitutes indices, we can be able to synchronize and endocrinize the sub-markets in a unified framework. Next, we will discuss on the research methodology. Research design can be grouped into three categories: exploratory, descriptive, and/or casual design. This paper will be conducted using an exploratory design as it focuses on gaining insights and familiarity for later investigation. The goal of this design is to gain familiarity with basic details, settings, and concerns to address the research questions and achieving research objectives. The study was conducted to analyze and discuss on the dry bulk market's possibility of recovery and the variable factors that may affect it, since there are few studies available on this issue. The study consists of qualitative study with 6 participants in Singapore in a focus group with vast knowledge on the dry bulk shipping industry. Limitation of the study is the lack of geographical coverage, as data gathered are only from Singapore, so it lacked international insight. Perceptual misinterpretation of participants' view may also be potentially limiting the study as well. The researcher limits the study to only the dry bulk market and biasness may occur. Unit of analysis. The unit of analysis is the major entity that is being analyzed in the study. It is the what or whom that is being studied. In social science research, typical units of analysis include individuals, groups, and social organizations. One of the biggest challenges in conducting qualitative data analysis is deciding on what piece of the data constitutes a meaningful unit to analyze. A unit, by definition, is a single undivided entity or whole. So in qualitative data analysis, a unit would be a single undivided entity upon which the study directs its analysis and expresses its qualities it perceives in that element. In this paper, the unit of analysis will be the focus group and the individual participants. Some theorists believe that the individual or the group should be the focus of the analysis instead of the unit of analysis though. Data collection method. The researcher undertakes a qualitative approach as the main research method. Qualitative research seeks to understand a given research problem or topic from the perspectives of the local population it involves. The strength of qualitative research is its ability to provide complex textual description of how people experience a given research issue. The researcher decided to employ focus group as the primary research method, which is effective in eliciting data on the cultural norms of the group and in generalizing broad overviews of issues of concern to the cultural group represented. The nature of this type of research is exploratory and open-ended, and small number of people were involved. Participants are asked to respond to general questions, and the group moderator probes and explores their responses to identify and define people's perception, opinions, and feelings about the topic or idea being discussed, and the degree of disagreement that exists in the group. Secondary data collections is literally defined as second-hand collection and have been collected, analyzed, and made available from other sources. Sampling strategy. The sample has to be selected to be as representative as possible of the target population and is enough numbers to provide valid answers. It is not the intention of focus group studies to produce conclusions that can be generalized beyond the context in which they are conducted, so random sampling is not necessary. The sample should be chosen to reflect those segments of the population who will provide the most meaningful information in relation to the project objectives. Sampling method. Selection of a sampling method for a research paper depends on a number of related theory and practical issues such as the nature of the study, its objectives, and the time and budget available. Non-probability sampling method will be used in this study as a means of selecting the sample from the target population using the basis of their availability or because of the researcher's personal judgment that they are the representative. Sampling frame is a list of all elements in the population of interest. The sampling frame operationally defines the target population from which the sample is drawn and to which the sample data will be generalized. The sampling frame for this project is constructed from the directory of shipping companies gained through the Shipping Association Directory of Singapore of Ship Owners Online, as well as general internet searches from industry knowledge of firms. Sampling size. Considering the cost in terms of time and resources, the researcher has decided on a sample size of 1 with a group size of 6. There are several reasons why it's advisable to keep groups as small as possible while still being able to elicit the breadth of responses required. Large groups are unwieldy to manage, allow free riding, and can be apt to fragment as subgroups form. Also, it may be hard to obtain an accurate recording of data as the amount of people in discussion may be difficult, if not possible, to track. Method of data analysis. There are few qualitative data analysis techniques that are best suited for analyzing focus group data, and the researcher has chosen the classical content analysis method. Within Morgan's 3-element coding framework, there are 3 unique ways to use classical content analysis with focus group data. Number 1, the analysis can identify whether each participant used a given code. Number 2, the analyst can assess whether each group used a given code. And number 3, the analyst can identify all instances of a given code. Data analysis and findings. The result of the content analysis shows a certain relationship between categories. The dry bulk market is indirectly influenced by the trends in the global economy and more specific by changes in gross domestic product and industrial production of the commodities market. When the source of domestic raw materials like oil and coal begin to get exhausted, countries have to start importing from other countries. When local resources are depleted, then countries have to rely on imports, and this in turn boosts the commodity needs, thereby increasing demand. As economies become very developed, countries begin to import less of raw materials as their activity tends to become less resource intensive and more service oriented, therefore reducing demand. The balance between the supply of ships and demand for commodities is the key to the performance of the dry bulk market. Technology development can result in ships having bigger in size, greater efficiency at ports, and more efficient organization of shipping operations, and will contribute to the lowering of transport costs on account of the economies of scale and better and higher quality of service, thereby increasing demand for sea transport. Political events such as wars, revolutions, coups, hostilities, political rationalization of foreign assets, and strikes can all have an indirect effect on the demand for shipping. And lastly, new legislation like economic sanctions also greatly discourage the demand for shipping by restricting trade. The next three secondary data shown further supports the primary findings that we have shown above. The global iron ore trade is subjected to seaborne supply and demand. The recent strength seen in Australia and Brazil's iron ore exports was largely driven by new production after years of development following sharp rises in iron ore prices. A large number of projects are finally coming online. Due to lower cost of production, these new supplies are expected to displace the high-cost producers in China and running out of economical and quality ore. The corn market is also seen to be improving as prospects for exceptional yields in the US and EU help to boost the global corn forecast. World total grains consumption is projected to grow by 2% year-on-year, with much increase on animal feed, particularly maize. During the year 2011-2013, the supply side of vessels has been a concern because overcapacity was blamed for the dropping shipping rates. However, the order book has gradually been reduced by the end of 2013 due to declining demand, and the total annual growth rate of tonnage will be reduced over the next 4 years. The conclusion of our findings and analysis.